we're going to be talking about the controversy that came the way of Matt Booty. And you know what's interesting? I did some digging as to how many actual articles, and I stopped at 10. This is not counting the socials, this is not counting Reddit. This is just counting articles about what Matt Booty had to say. Now, we're going to break down exactly what he said and why it got a lot of people up in arms. And I think it's, it's that false Xbox concern narrative, right? Whether it be how much money they're making, whether or not they're going to ship games on Xbox only and then move it to PlayStation or do day and date. There's all this false concern for Xbox. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is what it is. See, Money, look, when I say that I am an evidence-based conversation podcaster, I simply mean that I like to use other people's reviews or articles, and of course, shout out those articles by putting them in the show notes. So if something I say based on the article you want to read, you give them a click, right? So it's me forwarding the work of others. And that's something that we really like to do here at Double Barrel Gaming. On top of that, I enjoy going back and pulling articles from yesteryear regarding certain things that were overlooked or not made a big deal of, but something like, well, for instance, Matt Booty. Now, this article comes the way of videogameschronicles.com, and to be fair, I still like what they do. I'm a little disappointed with Andy Robinson, who kind of really went out of his way to kind of act like an a-hole on the socials the other day. And that's really, I can't listen. I don't know him. Like, he's going to invite me over to his house for dinner, but I've met Andy several times and he was a proper gentleman. We had great conversations about his work and the work of his authors for, VGC. I walked away, happy to have met him. And last week, he kind of got himself in a little bit of hot water because he got very pointed. And it might be, listen, folks, when people sometimes do things out of character, it's because they feel like they're being pushed. And I don't know if that was the case for Andy or not. But I like the work that he does. I think he's a proper gentleman because I've met him numerous times. So my thoughts are going to remain the way they are. He just had a bad day. But why I'm bringing up VGC, C-Money, is because it's an article that I'm using for today's show. And it's surrounding something that Matt Booty said. Now, look, Matt Booty, he's one of the few executives I have met. I have not met him yet. He is occasionally in the limelight. The last two major times that he was in the limelight, counting this one that we're going to talk about, was in 2021 at one of the award shows. He was heard or overheard speaking about, and that was in 2021, where they have so many games they don't know where to put them. And unfortunately, that was reported, and he did say it, but he was taken out of context because he was talking about, what was going to happen in the next couple of years rather than in 2021 where they had a really bad year. So, of course, everybody reported on it and everybody piled on. Well, last week, we had Matt Booty, and I think it's actually might have been. So I got the article here is from October 25th, so it's just a couple of days ago, where it goes on to say, C-Money, that Xbox's biggest competition, according to Matt Booty, isn't another console, but it's TikTok, movies, and other short form content. Now, like I said, just for the sake of having the evidence-based conversation that I like using, I literally copy and pasted the title, and I put it, and I have my listing right here. I have my notes right here. So, Tweaktown, Gaming Bolt, Game Rant, Kotaku, Eurogamer, all or most of the anti-Xbox publications, including IGN, kind of went a little difficult, kind of went hard, pause, on Matt Booty. Pause again. There you go, double pause.
That's real wild. Real wild.
Regarding this statement. So we're going to get into the statement, and he's right about some things here. As a matter of fact, I think he's 100% right. But You know what's very interesting, C Money, is that evidence-based conversation that I like to bring about. Now, this particular interview, right, that I'm going to read for you verbatim, is something that happened a couple of years ago. As a matter of fact, it was in, I believe, 2024 is when this conversation happened, and it happened with former PlayStation head Sean Layden. And this is what Sean had to say. Now, he's been in the news right along with Mike Ybarra. And we're going to get to Mike for a second because Mike, of course, does what Mike has been doing the last couple of months, is trying to remain relevant and in the zeitgeist of the gaming conversation. And instead of actually having adult man-like conversations with the community, he himself has acted like a 12-year-old child who is someone with a lot of money. We all know that Mike Ybarra is a millionaire, and his 12-year-oldness has been coming out because he's been siding with some of the biggest trolls on the interwebs. Now, we're not going to name those names because they're assholes, and I'm not about that smoke. But all you have to do is go look up, and you'll see who Mike has been talking to, and it's pretty embarrassing. Well, interestingly enough, this Sean Layden interview, I'm going to read it verbatim. Former PlayStation head Sean Layden stated that the video game industry is struggling with the rise of short-form medias like TikTok, which is pulling audiences away from traditional gaming due to their shorter attention spans. He argued that this isn't part of a larger issue where the industry's focus on expensive, lengthy, live service games is becoming unsustainable, leading to a, quote, collapse of creativity and a lack of innovation mid-tier experiences. Layden proposed solution is, his solution to it is shorter, more focused games that can maintain a player's intense engagement similar to classic game design. And you know what's interesting? This was spun as a positive article. Oh my God, former PlayStation head man Sean Layden says this. But then again, you move over to what Matt Booty had to say, and it's another one of those conversations that was not only made into a mountain out of a molehill, it falls in line with two pieces of story run content in the last couple of weeks, C Money. And that was one that took the interwebs by storm. Dev kit pricing for Xbox going up. Oh my God, what are we going to do? And then on top of that, if that story wasn't enough for you and a bit of a head scratcher, they went into the backroom conversation of what Xbox is expected as per Amy Hood, and that was the 30% profit. These are stories that are negative. They're Xbox negative stories. And instead of running with stories that, I don't know, like we talked about, they released 3 games in a matter of 8 days that are all bangers. This is what they're running with. Simon, I want to get your thoughts on what Matt Booty had to say, because I think he's right. I think when you look at the kids today, we're the old guard, right? You have kids. You understand. You yourself understand that your kids' attention spans are shorter. So they're not going to sit in for a 60 or 70-hour romp like you and the missus. That's something that old people do. The new kids today are sitting on TikTok. They're watching YouTube. They're in Threads. They're all these different places where their attention is. They pick up a game like Fortnite. They play for 15 minutes. They go back to TikTok. Matt Booty is right. And I think what set people off is the fact that, oh, God forbid, an executive should not look at Sony and be shivering in their boots. Look at your thoughts, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, first off, the benefit I have as well is that I have basically 2 generations of kids.
Okay.
So like I have older kids who were before the TikTok times, and we didn't let them get involved in any of that until they were pretty much in high school. And they although they do use TikTok and such, they're not like uh they do have the attention span, right? Like they can't, like my son plays long form games and he's, you know, fine with it, no problem. And then you do have the younger ones. Now we don't let our kids go on TikTok. So like the closest they get is to YouTube, like shorts, right? Um so you know, yeah, like I think they are definitely more entertained by that. Um but I think, you know, I think for us, we're just a little different household. We don't necessarily allow that too much. So,
That's good stuff,
but
man. Good to hear it.
the vast majority of people out in these streets, yes, right. That, you know, we said it right away when this came up, and we talked about it on our show. You know, he's talking about TikTok, but it's not literally only TikTok, right? He's talking about TikTok. He's talking about YouTube Shorts. He's talking about Instagram. He's talking about
Yes.
anything. It really boils down to anything that takes your time away from playing a game, right? Which is, that's just life in general, right? Like that's always been the thing, you know. You could look at, you know, your family as fighting against gaming, right? Because you want to spend time with your family, you want to spend time with your wife, and you guys, you know, watch certain things and do certain things, and in that time you're not going to be gaming, right? So, you know, listen, game, as much as, you know, all these companies, um they want us to always be gaming, right? Like that's their mind, right?
Mhm.
Like it's just like, if you're not, you know, they want you to nonstop be on gaming. And I think at the end of the day, you know, it's, that wouldn't be healthy, right? Like you need to balance life, right? You need to be doing other things. I think what, that doesn't change the fact that all these other things are in fact competing for your time, and for a company who is dedicated to gaming and they're looking to increase their numbers and do all this stuff. Yeah, they look at all of these things. Specifically Matt Booty, as you know, like they originally, you know, in the beginning of when they were coming up as Xbox, Nintendo and PlayStation were the biggest, you know, um their biggest competition, right? And then over time, as the company grew and all that other stuff, and then they, you know, Xbox kind of got itself into a position where it really, from Xbox and Microsoft, stopped being a PlayStation or Nintendo. Once everything kind of leveled out and you kind of just saw where everything was, right? PlayStation was going to sell the most of the hardcore consoles. Nintendo was going to sell the most consoles in general when it comes to the Switch and the Wii and stuff like that. So like things like that, that was a certain level. And at that point, once things kind of leveled out, that's where you got the quotes from Phil, where he was like, you know, it's honestly like PlayStation is not what we stay up at night thinking about, right? It's about other players coming in like an Amazon or Google who have the money that we do,
Yep.
who can actually compete with us, because as we all know here, PlayStation cannot compete with Xbox as far as what they're able to get and what they're able to give, right? They can't do a Game Pass. They can't do that, right? They can't buy crazy amounts of big studios. They cannot compete in that way, right? You know, it's always in Xbox's court and in Microsoft's court what they want to do and what they will be allowed to do by the government, right? Those are the only two things, right? It's their desire and what the government would allow that would, you know, stop Microsoft from doing more and more, right? So there is no competition in that respect. So now that they have conquered, I mean, we just got the news about Amazon, right? This is like the final bow out, where they were worried about Amazon and Google. Shortly after that, Google was out the door with Stadia.
And
They
Amazon is
put up
gone.
the white
They just
flag,
closed
and
their biggest
now
game, dude.
Amazon is bowing out. Now, are they going to shut everything down? No, but I just don't think in their mind they're not. I think they thought that they might come out and compete with the big dogs, similar
Yes.
to how Google Stadia was ramping up to have a first party studio to make, you know, first party games and fight the big dogs. And then they just, you know, Google got out as soon as they saw what it would require.
Yep.
And to Amazon's credit, they not being part of this industry, they spent some money, bought some studios, invested in games, released stuff, and it's either one, taking too long to get to where they would need it to be to continue the investment, or two, it's been long enough and they're seeing that they're never going to quite get to where they would need to be in order for Amazon as an entity for it to keep making sense for them to be involved in a major way, right? And so essentially that ship has sailed as well, right? Like that hurdle has been crossed. So now what's left, right? What is the next layer of competition for Microsoft and Xbox when they think about it? It's time, right? And it's about how can you go ahead and have people who want to balance a life with gaming to choose gaming over the other forms of entertainment, right? And I don't know that that's their problem to figure out, and those people who are invested in the idea of TikTok, like I don't use TikTok. I'm not.
Me either.
I'm not.
I didn't even
have
an account, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I mean, we made an account because we figured On Point should have an account, but like we don't really, we were uploading stuff a little bit, but then we kind of just stopped. But like it's just not like I don't frequent it. I don't use it as my app or something of choice. It's basically Twitter, right? That's where I, pretty much is. If I'm gonna go on my phone, it's Twitter or YouTube.
That's me too. Those are the two that I actually use. Yep.
Yeah, that's it. That's where I'm at. So I just think all he was just trying to say, and obviously they're gonna cry and take all this stuff out of context and make it a bigger deal. I think any rational person can see what he's talking about, right? And I think that he can make a statement and assume he's talking to people who are capable of understanding that at the end of the day, time is what they're all battling for.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it is. And if you think about, it's crazy when it comes to gaming because time is so like taken over already by a certain group of games, right? When you look at your Call of Duties of the world, your Minecrafts of the world, your Fortnites of the world, your Robloxes of the world, right? I would say those are the four, right? Those are the top four games that exist that are taking the time of gaming for most people, right? For the vast majority of gamers that are out there, that's where they're living their lives. So like you're battling, any other game you make is in gaming battling those four every single time because the time that is being invested in those, you have to pull those people away to get them to play your stuff, right? So you already have an uphill battle when you have gamers, right? When you have people who are choosing it. Everything else is, well, if you have people who much rather just stay on their phone, like how do you get them, right? How do you get them to get off of that and go play a game? Those are questions that they're asking and trying to sort out and see what they could do. And again, that's honestly that's their problem. I'm not really concerned with how they figure all that out. But at the end of the day, I think it's just pretty clear that he is referencing the idea that time that people are spending outside of gaming is the biggest competition for them, right? They want those people to move over to gaming instead of being on their phone. How do they do that? And you can see what they're talking about because their entire point right now is they're trying to meet people where they're at, right? So it's very easy for you to grab your phone and scroll, right? What they're trying to figure out is, well, if we make a handheld, is it just as easy for you to reach over and grab your handheld as opposed to turning on the TV and putting on a game or going to sit at your computer and turning on a game?
Yep.
Is the handheld gonna help with that problem? Is the handheld being somewhere that's around you gonna allow you to be like, you know what, instead of grabbing my phone, I'm gonna grab my handheld, right? And that is what they're trying to sort out. That's what they're trying to figure out, and you can see that it makes sense. So at the end of the day, that's why Xbox is looking at it from this much bigger scope, where they're looking at the end of the day, how do they reach more people? And it's not by telling them that we have the games are exclusive on our box, so that's how we're going to reach more people. Because if we have exclusives, clearly those people who are on TikTok will say, well, Xbox got these exclusives, so then I must go and play, right? No, right? Exclusives, we already know, don't really have much of an impact on anything anymore.
Not
We
like they
already
used
know.
to. It's something from
No,
yesteryear, brother.
it's not even in the discussion anymore. The people who are choosing PlayStation are already choosing PlayStation, not because of an exclusive. It's because that's just what they know. If they were going based off of games and things like that, they would only choose the games that align with them the most. And frankly, PlayStation is barely making games, right? So at the end of the day, there's way more choices. They would go with PC, they would go with Xbox, they would go with something else. PlayStation's really not even in that conversation much anymore when it comes to their games, right? Once a year is not enough for, consider a TikTok world, right, where people are looking for stimulation on a constant basis. Xbox is fulfilling that in a way that no one has ever done it, where they're constantly delivering us new games. They're constantly feeding our Game Pass, right? They're constantly giving us more. So if you are not satisfied with what you're playing right now, no worries. In a couple of weeks, there'll be something else going in the Game Pass, and you'll have another thing to try out. And they are understanding that that's the world that they have to live in. They have to be constantly giving, constantly feeding, for people to be able to be like, okay, this is going to make me want to play because there's another game coming out that I want to try. There's another thing that I'm getting in Game Pass that I want to try. If that conversation is, well, there's another game that I want to buy, that can only go so far, right? Because there's only so many times in a month that somebody's going to say, oh, there's another game this month that I'm going to buy, right? Because unfortunately, people's budgets are not unlimited, and
It's
they're
not
going to
even so
have to
much
make
that.
choices.
It's. I mean, just look at the report from Matt Piscatella from a couple of weeks ago. How many games are people buying per year? Like 2.
One or two, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's taking it to the broader spectrum of like everybody. I'm talking about even if you just broke it down to like more of the harder core gamers, you could be the hardest core gamer. If your wallet doesn't allow you to buy every game, then it doesn't matter how hardcore you are, right? There's only so many times in a month that most people are going to be able to say, oh, there's this new game coming out that I want to play, and I'm going to buy it, right? In Xbox's world, they've essentially giving you an option to be out of that conversation and be into a conversation where, for a fixed dollar amount, you no longer have to do that. Games come to you and you get to kind of explore, right? That is their way of trying to combat that from the harder core scale, right? Giving us constant games and things like that. But the real answer for them, going against the TikToks of the world and people's time, is putting your stuff everywhere. You want to put your stuff everywhere. You want to make it where those PlayStation players who don't have anything exciting coming out from now till Wolverine, and I know Saros is coming out, and I said exciting. I didn't say just some other random shit.
That'll sell 1 million copies, and that's probably about it.
What will sell 1 million copies? Saros,
yeah,
maybe in 5 years. It's definitely not doing that shit anytime soon. We already know that type of game is just not for the masses.
Hey, can we shout out Paris who dropped in to say Xbox is dead, long live TikTok?
Oh, facts. Paris, that's it. TikTok is it. But I mean, look, let's call a spade, right? In the game of time, gaming is losing, right?
Yes.
Everybody is doing other things before gaming when you statistically speaking, right? Like when you look at the numbers, way more people are on TikTok and doing all these other things than people are spending their time, gaming on a consistent basis. So, I think the plan is in effect, and I think they're moving in this direction, which is to just put everything everywhere. I mean, shit, you heard Satya, talk about the different places, but he brought up TV again, right? With the idea that, like, yes, like just your TV alone, like they want to figure out how to make this where you can experience it wherever, whenever you want. And I think the handheld is a huge step in the right direction.
Yep.
Again, having it there when you go, your phone and your handheld next to each other, at the very least, you have a decision to make in that moment, right? Whereas if you're not in front of your console, if you're not in front of your PC and your phone is the only thing you have next to you, there is no choice, right? It's I'm just gonna grab my phone real quick. But if your handheld's right there, there's a chance, right? There's a chance where you might say, all right, I'm gonna grab this and I'm gonna play this as opposed to, going on the phone. So I don't agree with all these crazy takes about what he said as some type of negative. I think these people are just obviously looking for something
Pro engagement, right? Brother. That's what it is.
They all just want to say something negative or try to act like they're like somehow Xbox is out of touch or doesn't understand. And no, they understand way more than you do. They have all the numbers. They see everything. Gotta understand. And I know that people don't like to hear this because people think they're the main characters in the world, right? And you're not, okay? You're the main character in your life alone. But as soon as you start talking to people outside of yourself, you're no longer the main character, okay? You're a very, very small portion of that. So however much knowledge you think you have, I promise you, these companies who are spending billions of dollars on research and doing everything that they're doing to study and analyze what's going on, they know what people are spending their time on, and that's why they're trying to do this. And I say they're spending billions of dollars because it's the truth. They're spending massive amounts of money on information, right? They want to make sure they know as much as humanly possible. There's a reason why Sony's slower to move, right? Because they're still in the billions of dollars, right? So for them spending billions of dollars on data is really hard to do in comparison to a $1 trillion, $4 trillion company, right? So, excuse me. At the end of the day, it really is not an issue. I think I saw, we said it on our show for sure that time was what he's referencing, right? Time is what he's referencing.
100%.
I know I saw Paris on his Twitter doing his hot take saying, he thinks he's referencing time, right? And I think most people who are rational and have the ability to think a little bit and not just try to be, hot take Sally, will be able to go ahead and come to that same conclusion, right? And is he specifically referencing TikTok only? Is he saying TikTok,
No.
That's it, nothing else around TikTok matters? YouTube Shorts, which is another hole that people get lost in, Instagram scrolling, right? There's so many other outlets that are essentially the same, right? Are essentially the same. He doesn't need to sit there and name everything. That's why he said TikTok. You know why? Because most people know TikTok. So they can understand and wrap their head around the fact that when he says TikTok, now I don't use TikTok. So for me, that doesn't hit the same. For me, I'm able to go and look at everything else. But somebody who only is on TikTok all the time outside of whatever else they do, then maybe for them, they hear TikTok, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? But again, if you have any ability to think for yourself and not fall into this hive mind movement against Xbox says something, so they're bad, you would easily be able to understand it. And the fact that we have to do this, and I know there's people who be in the chats who be like, why are you guys even talking about this? Because it's nothing burger. People should just understand that, but people don't, right? So sadly, you do need someone someone somewhere who has the ability to, speak to at least a small group of people and be like, hey guys, listen, hello, meet common sense. Common sense says that he's not saying anything stupid or wrong. He's literally telling you, okay, that time is the competition, man. That's what it is. Accept that and don't think it's any deeper than them just figuring out it's their business. They have to figure out how to get you to want to spend your time in their ecosystem, whether that's on an Xbox, whether that's on a PC, whether that's playing Minecraft on PlayStation or Outer Worlds 2 on PlayStation. They don't give a crap. As long as you're logging in and playing something that's related to them, that's where they want you to be. And that matters to them. And that's what they're going to do. And that's the way they're always going to look at it. So any other thoughts outside of that are irrelevant. You're just making shit up to go ahead and do that. I had a conversation recently with a prominent pony, I would say, or at least somebody that I thought was a prominent pony. And it was pretty, cordial. There wasn't anything crazy and there was no nasty stuff going on, which is great. Yeah, it was actually refreshing. I didn't think I thought it might go somewhere, but it didn't. But the takes are the same, right? Like it's the same stuff that are discussed that are like the same kind of bullshit narratives like that are out there. And it's like we need to get past the bullshit. I know that's the engagement, right? I know that's there's a group of people who are waiting for someone to say negative shit about Xbox because they're not on Xbox and they're upset that their narrative is changing, that exclusives are a thing of the past. And it's because the world is telling Xbox that that's what it is, right? And you guys are upset that Xbox is choosing to go that way, right? That's the problem. They want to see Xbox have some pain brought to them, because if they can't talk about their PlayStation as the definitive, way to do things, and their exclusives or the sales, if none of that matters, then their entire online persona dies, right? If they don't have that to say, then they don't have anything to say, right? And that is a problem for them. So they cling so tightly to it. And I get it for them. I mean, it's, change is hard for people, right? But at a certain point, you got to kind of see what's what. And, all these people, PlayStation, Nintendo, everybody's fighting for the same thing, which is the time, right? It's just is what it is. And like any other version of that conversation is just ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. It's dumb. And sadly, it's a waste of time. But we got to do it. We got to talk about it.